And we're live, and we're here together with Bear Douglas. She is joining us from New York City, or where are you?
I'm in New York City right now. Yes.
All right, and Bear is a developer advocate lead at Slack, where she helps people build tools to make their work lives better. And also before Slack, you worked at you worked on developer relations on Twitter and Facebook. And we're very happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be joining you.
All right. So we are doing a bit of a hackathon today. We're part of this Major League Hack LocalHackDay around the globe. And here at Craft Academy, we're running those events in Stockholm and in Gothenburg, where I am, but also in South Africa, in Pretoria. So we have developers listening to you and joining and working together across the globe. And of course, Slack is very useful to us in a setting like this because we can communicate in a good manner and collaborate with each other.
Awesome.
So that's really good. Today's theme is for us is stop food waste. So we're doing this. We're working on small applications to tackle the food waste problem and see if technology can in some way be a part of the solution. But so we can talk about that, of course, if that's something that interests you, Bear, but also we would like to hear more from you about Slack and how Slack is supporting developers across the globe and what you do at Slack.
Sure. In the vein of food waste, one of the things that somebody inside Slack was, I don't know if they've shipped it yet, but we occasionally get catering for Slack. We don't serve all meals like many tech companies do in the US. We just have lunch on Mondays, breakfast on Fridays, but sometimes they overorder because they want to make sure that there's enough for everybody. And so minimizing food waste can be kind of difficult. So once somebody wanted to create an attendance bot, well, all right, are you going to be there for lunch on Monday? Are you going to be there for lunch on Friday? So they can get a more accurate head count and reduce the amount of food to ultimately reduce food waste. So I think it's a great idea that you're having a whole hackathon dedicated to this. What I do at Slack is I lead the team that writes our API documentation. So if you're going to write any sort of into Slack or any sort of interactive thing that lets you actually get work done inside Slack, we have documentation, we have SDKs and other tooling that make that a little more possible. So my team's job is generally to connect and make sure that if people have issues with the Slack platform or things that are broken that they want fixed, that we can help them out, being their direct team. So one of the things that we heard a lot in May when we were in Sweden was that people wanted a way to start testing their apps and bots. And so in the intervening time, we've released a project called Steno to test bots because we were listening and we knew that this was something that was important for people. So if there is anything that you want me to know that would make your lives easier when working with Slack, that's what I'm here to do.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Can we talk numbers? How big is Slack in the developer community, but also altogether? How many people are using your platform, and what are the most popular bots or ways to enhance the Slack experience built by others than you?
Sure. So we have over 155,000 weekly active developers, and let's see, probably the installed and used apps are things like Giphy. For lots of people, just love adding GIFs into Slack. That's a very popular one. A really popular one is called Poly. It's a polling tool that works inside Slack. And one of the value propositions there is that people surveys inside conversational context, they're much more likely to actually fill them out. That's something that Twitter saw too, is when people tried to do customer service interaction, people almost never stick around on the phone to answer a quick 1-minute survey after your phone call. But if you send them DM on Twitter after they've been talking with a customer service agent, the response rate is really high. Is a popular one. There's another popular one called StatsBot that just runs reports across all of your business analytics tools and pipes them into Slack so you can have conversations with your colleagues about them. Google Drive Bot, it sounds pretty simple and straightforward, but things like make sure that if you're sharing a link inside a channel that everybody who's in that channel can actually click on that link, or like they have the permission to view it. Let's see, what else is super popular? There's a cool app called Donut that does a few things. It's an onboarding tool where they have a sort of like a CMS that you can use to design onboarding modules for people who are new to the company. And then they also have a feature that pairs you up randomly on a monthly or weekly cadence with people across your company for coffee. So you can start to meet people and make connections. And I have to tell you, using that inside Slack, I have every single time met somebody who it turned out to be really lucky that I met that particular week because I needed to know or what their team was up to for some project we were working on.
All right. Yeah, life has its way to connect people in its special way, and technology can help with that, I guess. So that I'm going to check it out. That sounds really interesting. Some of the stuff some of the bots and applications you mentioned are things that we use here at Craft Academy, but some of them are new to me, so I'm going to definitely check them out. Sounds great. So you know, one thing that we are very keen to promote here at Craft is is women getting into tech, right? And you're a woman. You work on in those large companies, and I understand also that you've been involved with Ember.js. You were part of the team, or are you still part of the team?
So I am the community manager right now for Ember San Francisco. I was working with the team over at Strobe when we started maintaining Sprout Core, sort of in parallel with Apple, and then branched off to Sprout Core 2.0 that became Ember. So to be honest, I'm not a JavaScript person at all. I spent most of the last 5 years writing Android apps and more getting back into the web now. The irony is that I support Ember because it's a lot of my close friends and former colleagues who are the core team, but I'm not an Emberist. So if you want to talk deep stuff about
the reason I mentioned, I was doing an intro to Ember earlier today, actually. So just thought I mentioned it because I saw you as one of the speakers on the last year's EmberConf, I think. Yeah, right. Yeah, but anyway, back to the. Now I was thinking about my original question, like how is it for women to be involved in this industry in the US? I know that we have our share of problems here in Europe, and I say problems because we have a fairly big underrepresentation of females in the industry. And if you could talk about that for a while, and also if you could give some advice to women who are entering the industry and what to do and how, you know, some strategies perhaps, or, you know, based on your experience.
Yeah, sure. So it's actually kind of funny and topical that you brought up EmberConf, because one of the things that matters a lot to Leia, and to me, because I help out with this, is making it possible for more women speakers to join up. So they've done a few things. One is to create a double-blind submission process where are evaluated. Can't be double-blind, but you know what I mean. Blind, there's not much information on the speaker before they just evaluate the content of the talk, and that has actually helped boost the number of women who get selected. But then we also do a bunch of proactive recruiting among women who we know are broadly in the Ember community that we use to chat about conference talk prep and just general things that are going on inside the community. And then the day before the talks start at EmberConf, we have a pre-day where there is a workshop that I lead on public speaking, get comfortable on stage, and be prepared for things like Q&A if you don't know what kind of questions you're going to get asked. And then a couple of activities will get to know each other, so the conference setting isn't so intimidating. So if you're going to a conference for the first time where you're not going to know anybody, it can be a little difficult to get. It can be hard to start conversations, but we try and kick off where everyone has a buddy, women, because they're coming to this Women's Day ahead of time, will know one another going in. And it's a great thing that helps make everybody a little more comfortable and connected. The way this ties into my broader answer about being in tech is that there are plenty of us who are trying to create those spaces, create those programs that people who are, or women who are new to technology, find us sooner and know that they're not alone. Because that's the thing that can be isolating, is seeing that there's nobody who looks like you, who has the same background as you do, and also that you carry the weight of expectation, right? There's an XKCD comic that has a guy doing a differential really wrong, and the guy talking to him says, "Wow, you suck at math." And then there's a girl who does the integral equally wrong, and he says, "Wow, girls suck at math." Yeah. And so because of that lack of women in the space, you become representative of much more than you, which is not necessarily fair. So the key is the other women, and we are here, and we are trying to find you. So if you join up anything, the Python community has been really great about this as well, actually. PyCon, up to 50% women speakers, and all of that has been done partially by proactively recruiting and partially by instituting the blind validation.
Yeah, I'm a Rails guy, and I wish that the Rails community could do the same thing, because I know there are some pretty amazing developers and that have a lot to share. And I think that the stuff that you are talking about for the EmberCon, for instance, is a very good initiative. And I will pass that along to my friends in the Rails community as well. Perhaps that's something that they could replicate.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, though, and I think people underestimate that, and they think that, oh, if you build it, they will come, or we can say diversity is important to us, and that'll do the work. But no, it's more than that.
I think so too. I think because there's a lot of talk about diversity in tech, right? And it has been for several years. But I feel that like initiatives like the one that you were explaining, but also some other stuff has been picking up pace for the last, I don't know, 6 months or to a year. Things are happening, even though we've been talking about it for a long time. And then, of course, those large corporations are waking up, of course, and there's a lot of things, positive things happening in the startup community. Mm-hmm. I think that's a very good, progress that has been made. And it's not always about gender inequality. I think, like in Scandinavia, we have a problem with ethnic and socioeconomic stuff. But I think that there's a lot of positive things happening, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, gender gets the most airtime in the U.S., but we absolutely also have a problem with socioeconomic and ethnic inequality when it comes to representation in tech. And that's something that often get treated as separate subjects, but more and more intersectionality as a concept has been in the public conversation, and how we can be talking about all these things at the same time because they are interlinked.
Mm-hmm. I would like to ask you a little bit about the strategies you've seen in those companies where you've been active about remote work, because I think that personally, remote recruiting, staff and allow them to work remotely also broadens the demographic, right? The amount of people you can recruit from, and that could also help in this inequality problem a little bit. So, for instance, Stockholm is an expensive city to live in, right? So, if we talk about socioeconomic inequality, having people move to Stockholm or to Gothenburg, to the inner cities, is really hard, right? And I assume you work out of Silicon Valley, if I'm not mistaken. It's not the cheapest place to live, I assume. So if we allow more remote work, I think we can attract more people. And what are your take on that? And what have you seen in terms of remote work in the companies you've been involved in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that remote work is extremely promising when it comes to how it will allow people to live in the future. And I think we are seeing trends everywhere. That said, a lot of the companies that I've worked at have not been the friendliest toward remote work, in that they strongly prefer you to be in the office because it creates chances for happenstance interactions with your colleagues where you weren't just bumping into them in the hallways, or you weren't, getting a coffee with them because of donut. Forge those connections and make sure that the left hand and the right hand know what one another are doing. So it's kind of interesting, both aware that this is the future, but also very very invested in the benefits of not doing remote work. So I think it's going to be a slow change, but I think remote work is the future, and I think one of the things that's going to be instrumental in making it possible for all companies to adopt this, figure out socially how we communicate in such a way that you don't lose the possibility of meeting your colleagues happenstance just because you happen to be remote. So I don't have a great answer for that yet. I don't know what that looks like behavior-wise, but I think getting in the habit of constant communication through tools like Slack, through chat rather than email, that's sort of the activation energy to communicate with someone. It's just a lot easier to send a 3-word DM than it is to write out a whole email. I would hope that contributes to people feeling more connected.
And so in your travels, I know that you travel a lot to Europe and you travel across the United States, and you've been to Asia recently. When you meet developers, are the new projects that they talk about often related to enhancing productivity using Slack, or is there a trend in developing like social interaction bots or applications that allow people to also have this virtual coffee break together or bump into each other in some way? Is technology able to kind of bridge that gap somehow? What do you think?
Yeah, people are developing both. Actually, there's focused on building tools that plug an existing hole in the market when it comes to work and getting work done. We've got a lot of developers who are really excited about that. For example, there's a really cool presentation creation app called Paste that a lot easier to build presentations collaboratively. And so people are very gung-ho about those sorts of things. But then a lot of people meet Slack for the first time in a community team, like in the team that you have right now, where it's around an event or around a long-term developer community or social community. And so for people who encounter Slack that way the first time, the things that they get most benefit from are those social apps. And Giphy, spans both use cases, and there are plenty of social apps that span both use cases. Like talking about Donut right now, you could think that pairing up of people could be useful whether you're in a work context or a social context. People who are building things specifically to help communities, and they have different needs when it comes to keeping people connected, keeping people feeling an affinity that is not based on talking to each other. Video connection or trivia games that connect you with your colleagues based on things that you might not know about them. I think that we will see more and more that people understand that there is value in using social applications at work because of the net effect that it has on how you relate to your colleagues.
Cool, awesome. Final question, because we don't want to take up your entire Saturday. Thank you very much again for doing this on a weekend. We are in the business of bringing new talents into the industry, like new developers. So we run a coding school. And do you have any tips or advice to send off with the people that are just about to start their careers as developers, and what to look for, what do you see in the future, what should they focus on, and stuff like that?
Oh gosh, I mean, I would say don't be too worried about catching industry trends right now. I would say focus more on building up a portfolio of things that you have done, because a lot of, as an engineer is you're generally skilled as an engineer, and then this company has a particular need, and you will train up on maybe the specific language that they need you to use, or the specific sets of frameworks that they've built. A company like Google, for example, they use so much that is internal to Google that a lot of the stuff that you've learned about like JavaScript or vanilla Ember would be completely inapplicable because Google has their own versions of everything. Rather than trying to match your skill set to where you think the future is going, just focus on building projects in general, and that'll to be a part of the industry rather than trying to catch a direction, I'd say.
All right. Thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. Do you have any questions for us at this point? Once again?
What are you all building today?
Yeah, so what are we building? We're building, some of the teams here in Gothenburg are building a place for people to meet that, you know, like if companies have some excess food, right? Am I correct? That was in Stockholm. Okay, so what are you guys building? Come on. Can somebody come up and say what we're building?
It's a race application that shows up products that are reaching the expiration date.
Okay.
And then like basically the idea is that like once you input like your product, you see what you can do with the food when it's close or when it reaches the expiration date.
Okay.
And then like we would like to send a recipe or something to actually use this food and not throw it away.
Okay. So I don't know if you catch that, but they're building our application that is tracking the product's expiration date and then gives suggestions on recipes and stuff like that, depending on, you know, what you have available and stuff like that. So that's one project. I know that we have an organization with us here that already do work, actually backed by a system, and they have an API that tracks on how much food they have collected and how much got wasted. So they are looking into tapping into that API and do some sort of a data visualization to showcase what you know, how much waste is going on in the society and stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah, it's about building awareness, basically.
Yeah. Like food is called something like the fridge. We collect food that the shops would throw away and give it out to people who want it or need it.
Yeah. So what my friend here is saying is that they collect food from shops that would otherwise, you know, throw it away, and perhaps even restaurants or some other businesses, you know, and then give it away for free to nonprofits or individuals. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, so I think it's a worthy cause. That's why I'm involved. And of course, there's a lot of Rails going on because we are Rails people. So you know, so they prototype really fast, and we hopefully by the end of the day we have a few more hours to work on the code basis. We get something that is shippable.
Awesome.
Cool.
That's exciting.
All right. So thank you again. And if you have time to stick around the Slack channel for a while, if there is any questions to there, just go ahead and ask them in the Slack, in the Craft Academy channel on Slack.
Great.
And again, awesome to have you with us. Thank you very much
for having me. Good to connect, and good luck. That's what an awesome thing to be working on.
Thank you. So long. Good stuff.